Hi there, gang. Dr. J, Steve Jensen from the National Sales Academy and Impact Trading Corporation. What's today? Today is sales and business tips. And as you know, I find the best people to come on to have a chat with us. And today I've got a photographer. The reason I've got a photographer is because so many of our businesses over the last 2 or 3 years have been moving into taking lots of photos of their businesses and of their teams and using on social media and on their websites and so forth. And one of the big things that's come across to me is that sometimes these, let's say, photos aren't representing their brand. And sometimes poor photos can actually do damage to your business. And when I actually met up with Darren Saul from Suspended Animation, it was absolutely fabulous because at the end of the day, he was talking about the things that he does to actually help businesses have let's say, a better presence out into the marketplace. So I'm going to do a bit of a deep dive today, guys, and really find out what are some of the things we should be doing with our photos, what we shouldn't be doing, and what's damaging our brand, and actually what actually makes our brand stand out, and also how to use them in marketing. So welcome, Darren. Thanks for joining us.
Oh, thank you very much, Steve. It's a pleasure to be here with you.
Look, as I said in the introduction, so many of our businesses now are using photographs, and it's becoming essential, especially with social media these days and the websites and landing pages and so forth. And I was just absolutely fascinated to find out some of the things that people should be doing, and also some of the mistakes they're making that cost them a fortune. So before we get started, why don't you tell our listeners a little bit about Darren Saul and Suspended Animation? How did you get involved in photography?
Oh, fantastic. What a lovely question. I always like talking about my background and my journey into photography. And I did photography at school. So I used to be there in the dark room with the film and the lights and the blow dryer and the chemicals. And I used to have a lot of fun back in those days. And then I kind of just left it after school. Life got in the way, started doing all these other things. And about 7, 8 years ago, I thought to myself, you know what? I think I need a hobby. I need something a little different, not just work all the time. So I thought, why don't I get back into photography? And at that point, photography was digital. So we left wasn't totally digital, but a lot of people were moving more into digital and leaving the analog behind. And so I bought a couple of kit cameras from JB Hi-Fi and started taking some courses, and it just became an absolute obsession. When I should have been doing other things, I was photographing, I was walking around, I was doing street photography, I was photographing friends and family, doing events and getting any experience I could. And it just became an obsession. It became apparent to me that it's something that is a real passion and something that I could possibly do something more than just have, a little session every now and again. So then I decided to pursue it professionally, and I did more courses and did more marketing and did a lot of branding and put a strategy around becoming a professional photographer. And so that's been in place for the last 7, 8 years, and that's growing nicely every day.
Terrific. And look, I'm sure you've seen some fantastic photos in your time. I'm sure you're doing lots of study and so on, but I'm also seeing a lot of photos being utilized these days that are doing a lot of damage to people's branding. Now, I'd love to start off with the 2 biggest mistakes that you're seeing people making for their businesses and for their brand and in their marketing or whatever. What are some 2 big mistakes that they're making when they're using photos? Now, sometimes they might take the photos themselves, or they maybe go in and just get the good old iStock or the Getty Images photos. What are some of the mistakes, the 2 biggest ones that you've found for people in business?
Perfect. Now, this is a really good question because I'm going to digress just a little and give a bit more background into this question, because nowadays I love the way you posed that question, structured it, because nowadays you can think of marketing as marketing, and you can also think of branding. So for me, possibly they can be 2 different things. So you can have photography that's very useful for marketing in your day-to-day marketing, but you can also have photos that are really important to establishing and being in line with your brand. So if I just talk about branding in particular, it's got to be, for branding photographs, you've got to have quality. And a lot of people don't use quality photographs or quality photographers. They might want to do a quick one on the fly with a friend or a family member, or set up a tripod and, just take a photo, but they're not professionals and they don't know how to take the photo. They don't know how to edit and process the photo and deliver it. So quality photography is definitely one of the issues. And the other thing is context. And a lot of people don't have a photo that is really in line with their brand or what they're trying to actually achieve. If you're a lawyer and you want to have a photo that's going to be in line with your branding, you don't want to have a photo of you on your website of you having a beer with your friends at a picnic in Centennial Park. That's not really going to show us that you're a serious player in the legal industry and that you're going to be trustworthy and you're credible and you're an authority and you're going to win the deal, win the case, and I can put my life in your hands. So, there's a place for every type of photograph, and it has to be contextual. So I think those two things are really important: quality and context.
So let's put them into context. I think it's a good word.
Pleasure.
Give me some examples of what people do to have a poor quality photograph. Is it because it's out of focus, or it's the person's got too much, let's say, sky above their head, or what are some of the things that people do wrong to make sure that they have let's say, a poor quality, and how could they fix it?
Perfect. So, look, the first way to fix a poor quality photograph is to work with a professional photographer. Most professional photographers, are experienced at delivering quality photographs, and they know how to get the best out of you in the session. That's another thing that we'll probably chat about a bit later. But a photograph in itself, it has to be framed in the right way. As you mentioned, there's, from a space and a ratio point of view, it has to be processed in the right way in terms of contrast and color and or black and white. It has to use the right lens choice to get the best out of the subject, to be the most flattering in some circumstances, or if it's more of an environmental portrait, you have to have a different lens because you want to get more of the environment or the situation. So every photograph requires a different technology in a way, different way of seeing, different settings, different lenses, as well as the art in processing and delivering the photo as well. And a professional photographer is experienced at doing all that, whereas a layman just says, oh yeah, photo sounds great, looks great, fantastic. But they're like chalk and cheese.
Well, that's interesting because sometimes a black and white photograph is going to be more in line with the quality that you're looking for than maybe just a full color. And sometimes you can mix them up a little bit. And I've seen lots of photographs where we just got a head in the wrong spot, and it's a nice photograph, but it's not trimmed up enough and so forth. And then you put it out into the marketplace to try to get people to say, wow, that's great. And it's a little bit underwhelming. So let's say, just get a professional to do it, and it will save you a whole lot of grief in the long run. Might cost a little bit of money from the get-go, but you'll get it back tenfold. I'm a big believer in getting experts to do things.
100%, because a professional photographer lives and breathes visual imagery, and they're looking at photos, they're analyzing space, quality, black and white versus color, and they also have a sense of how the photograph is impacting the viewer emotionally, which is also a big part of, what you're using a photograph for. So if a photographer does this day in, day out, and a layman just doesn't really take the time or have the time to really delve into the nuances of photography to that degree.
So it comes down to a business. Actually, if it's a business for marketing or for branding, you should really say, well, look, this is you need to get a professional. You go to a professional to get your accounting done. You go to a professional to actually go to the doctors.
Yep.
If you're going to be something that everyone's going to see around the world, spend a little bit of money on getting a quality photographer that can utilize all those things you just mentioned. I think that's overlooked so many times because they'll say, oh, I've got a great camera, I'll take a few snaps, and it just doesn't work.
100%. And And another thing that's really interesting is that people think, or people don't realize a lot of the time, that your photograph is actually the first filter or the first line in the relationship building process with that person. So sometimes that photograph can actually just absolutely destroy any further potential of building a relationship, or, you know, asking any questions about your product or service, or it can actually cut the communication totally, or it can, by the same token, invite you in to take a journey with this person about their service or their product. So your photo is the first line of defense, and it must be in line with who you are and what you're trying to say. Otherwise, you're just turning away potential business.
So with that in mind, let's go to the context. Before a photographer, or let's say yourself, a professional that does this day in, day out, and using the different lenses and the different types of speeds to making sure you've got the right clarity, or maybe it's foggy in the background, have clarity in the face, or whatever it may be, or maybe it could be of a product or service that they, or that people are taking a photograph of a thing.
Yep.
Does the photographer need to sit down with the person and actually go through a strategy and making sure this is the feel we want? Should they have a little conversation about you? What is the outcome you're looking for, so that they can use their expertise to be able to, let's say, create the journey in their session? Maybe lasts an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, whatever it may be, but they're clicking away, but they've got that strategy in place, so that at the end of the day, they can actually have all these great pictures which marry up to what the outcome was.
Absolutely, they should. Absolutely. And it'd be crazy to go into a photo session, get ready, take a few photos, get the photographers ready, take some photos, not say hello, not allow the photographer to understand what you're trying to achieve with these photos, and then walk away and he'll send you the bill and send you the photos. That'd be crazy. Like a photo session and any photography is really a collaboration between the photographer and the subject, or the object, even if it's a product. So you must have, it's a two-way street. It's a collaboration. It's a relationship. And even at the end, the photographer might say, look, I think these ones work better, or these ones work better, but it's still up to the person that's purchasing the photographs and going to use the photographs to say, that's the one I like, that's the one I want to use. So it's usually a to and fro, and it's a marriage between the two. And if you don't have that way of thinking, you actually don't get a quality photograph as well. You don't get magic. Magic happens when that relationship is conducive to that magic happening, and you need to collaborate to do that.
So after the photo shoot, do you think it's a good idea to have a bit of a debrief on how the photo shoot went, or maybe should be extended, or how the editing will be taking place? Is that something that you would recommend?
Yeah, definitely. And even it's really, it's kind of like you're working and debriefing in many steps along the way and giving feedback along the way. So say if I'm doing a photo shoot with a subject and they need some marketing material or some branding photographs, as we go, I'm saying, well, let's have a look. What do you like? What don't you like? I think that looks really good, but maybe you can, we need you to smile a bit more. We need you to look this way. That angle looks better for me. Turn your body a bit this way. And then we're learning as we go, and we're critiquing. And then the next session will be even better. Okay, so it's a process. That's a step-by-step process.
So let me just go through that. I think that was quite interesting. So during the photo shoot, a professional photographer should be sort of stopping and just saying, well, let's just see how we're traveling. We need to maybe do a bit more here before the shoot finishes, because nothing's worse to come back with some dodgy pictures. You say, well, hang on a tick, we've got to do a little bit more there. We've got to put it in, take this photograph of your premises or you or your team. Yep. I think you need to be a bit more jovial, a bit more smiley, or less smiley. Let's be a bit more serious, and then change the mood a little bit throughout this session.
Definitely. Because say you're taking a headshot for someone that's in the customer service industry. They have to be smiling. They have to be happy. They have to be approachable. If they take a series of photographs and they don't want to smile, that doesn't really do them justice. That's not really, it's not really contextual for what they're doing, what service they're providing, and what they're going to use these photographs for. So it's up to the photographer to say, look, I think, we need to have you smiling a little bit. So let's lighten it up a bit. Let's put some music on. I think we need to smile a bit, and you work through this process until you get to where you need to be. So really, it's a journey. It's a journey.
So we've done a fair few presentations and so forth. We've asked photographers to come along in the past, and they've actually done exactly what you've said. They've sat down and what sort of mood do you want? And what they do is sure, you can actually do all your bits and pieces and you can have your headshot. But a lot of times, especially in businesses where people are doing things, it could be a picture of a health club. It's a classic example of a health club. Take a photograph of their beautiful gym with no one in it.
Yes.
Exactly. What's that all about? You need to be able to get permission from the people doing exercise. But with the staff and so forth, they should actually be physically doing things. And I remember when our photographers were talking to us, they said, well, we're just going to take you doing your thing. Just keep doing it. They actually had the context of seeing animation and expression and making a big point of it, and focusing on the face, and sometimes making the background blurry and so forth. And halfway through the breaks, they say, well, let's have a bit of a Bo Peep. I need you to do a bit more of this, so we could fix it. So we had a proper shoot. So I think what you're saying there is spot on the money, and that's what I've experienced with the good ones.
Yeah, 100%. And look, just like anything, you pay for what you get. If you're willing to spend the money to get a professional photographer that's been doing this for a while and thinks along these lines, you'll come out. It's a journey. You'll collaborate, and you'll come out with some images that are fantastic, and you're going to be able to use them for many, many years. Whereas if you don't, you're going to get something substandard, and your results might be substandard.
I agree with you. And a lot of people gravitate towards getting the stock images. And I've had lots of feedback over the last few years, matter of fact, where people say, gee whiz, you've got to get your own team doing this, or you've got to have you doing something, or a picture of your car, or something that belongs to you. So it's more personalized, instead of just having these beautiful models and so forth doing their thing, or even stuff that's a little bit out of context. What's your thoughts about getting stock images compared to getting photographs of the real thing?
Yeah, perfect. Of course, ideally, if you can have the real thing for everything, that is always going to be more authentic and more in line with your brand than any stock photos that you're going to use. But saying that, if it's for just, as I mentioned, the distinction between branding and marketing, if it's just something really simple, might be a newsletter that you're going to send, or it might be just a little contact us part of your website, you can get away with a stock image for that kind of thing, because it's not really the image is not really creating any massive connection, or it's not really saying anything. It's not really in line with, it's not part of your sales process or your marketing content. But for the most part, if you really, anything that's going to be in line with your marketing strategy or who you are, and it's going to be important for helping build trust and credibility, you have to be authentic, and you have to have real photos for that.
Okay. Now, when it comes down to getting a photographer in, and sometimes it's outside, sometimes it's inside, how important is it to have lighting? So I've seen some photographers come just with their camera and they're clicking away, but others come with these portable lights and these shields to actually create more lighting and so forth.
Yep.
Are those things important, or can we just get away with just having the photographer just doing the snapshots with their trusty camera without flashes and those types of lights?
Yeah, look, now lighting is something that is incredibly, it's like a minefield. You can go, like, photography is all about light, really. I think in Latin, photography means painting with light. So photography is all about light, and photographers are constantly looking at lighting. But you can set up a very complex 4 or 5 or 10 light scenario, or you can do it with one flash or one light and a reflector. So it's all about the trade-off between how much time you have, how much space you have, and what gear the photographer is comfortable with. So certainly the photographer will always do something to maximize the light and to make the photos look as professional as they can and as flattering as they can, using the light they have with the tools they have. But you can also go overboard as well. So it's really just about that marriage between time and space, really, with lighting.
With the a couple of sessions that we had some time ago, I was doing a presentation, and the photographer actually brought some quite big lights because we're in the whole quite a large room, but most of the photography was going to be done at the front, so we had it all lit up.
Yeah.
And another time we came along, and the photo was just taken along with just the lights in the room. And at the end of the session, we had it all sort of halfway through the session. It would seem to be quite dull. And what they said, look, there's nothing we can really do about it because the lighting's not that great. And, we didn't bring a whole lot of lights there because it's not a huge room. But what we'll do is when we go back and we'll edit it and adjust the contrast to make sure it becomes a little bit brighter. And I recall when they finished, I was just a bit disappointed. But when we came back, they must have used some application or Photoshop or whatever, and they all looked like they had lights on and everything. Is it important for a photographer to be able to have the digital, let's say, editing tools like Photoshop and other things, which would have no idea about, to make sure that the photos can be touched up a little bit and may look better?
Yes, absolutely. Again, photography is 50% in the camera and 50% post-production.
Okay.
There's a lot of people don't realize as well why photographers charge why they charge. Sometimes if they do an event or, even a photo shoot, they charge because there's still going to be a lot of work done after on that photograph. They're not charging for their time in a way of that session. They're charging for that session plus all the post-production. And that could be hours of work to really get everything the way it needs to be. Plus things need to be backed up and, delivered digitally and all this kind of stuff. But certainly Lightroom and Photoshop and many other tools are extremely important. And, if you took a photo that came straight out of the camera, most of the time it looks pretty flat. But when you take it into post-production, that's when you punch it up a bit. And
that's where they do the thing called high res and low res, when they have the high resolutions where you can blow it up and it's just really crystal clear, and then you have the low res. But if you take the little photograph yourself, you can't do that very well unless you have the editing tools, and that maybe got a great picture, but it just doesn't work because it's not of the quality that's necessary.
Definitely. Like pictures that come straight out of the camera with professional cameras actually can be a little bit flat, but after you post-produce them, they're incredible. And pictures that come out of an iPhone might be a little bit punchier initially, but they still will lack that quality look at the end compared to a quality photograph.
So it's is it called a thing called a pixel, isn't it? It's the pixel density. Is that right?
Definitely. Everything, all the image gets recorded on the sensor, and then you get a pixelation or a pixelated image, and then you can play with the resolution, you can play with the contrast, you can play with shadows and highlights. You can play with color versus black and white. You can reduce a bit of snowiness or noisiness. You can fix up any distortion. There's no end to what you can do. It's unbelievable. So it's really 50% photography and 50% post-production.
So really coming home here really strongly, guys, and listen to what Darren's saying. You can take a photograph, you've got a lovely camera. You'd be better off actually taking that for your snapshots and so forth. But if it's for your business, you'd be better off getting someone in to do this so that post-production can be done, so you can get your high res and your low res. If you really care about your branding and your marketing, it would be a good idea to invest in that. A professional be able to do that post-production. It's not just getting the great picture. So that's a bit of a nugget there. Thanks a lot, Darren.
Absolutely. And a lot of photographers they really don't want to show you their photographs until they've done their post-production, because it's really like another world. And when people want to see them, they really can't see, you can't tell what this photograph's going to really be or what it's going to really look like until you've done your post-production. And we don't want to show anybody until it's done, because that's our artistic reputation on the line. That's
what I've seen that at weddings. They give a little snapshot, so you'll love it when I get it to you. And
exactly.
It's cleaned up. It's either softened or it's made a little sharper, and they look like chalk and cheese. It's absolutely right. That's the same for business as well.
Yep, absolutely.
Which brings me for my next point.
Yes.
We started a little bit earlier with marketing. Marketing a message, a call to action to get someone to engage, to say, I want to opt into your opt-in box, or I want to make the phone call and so forth. And then there's the branding.
Yes.
The branding is the colors and all of the things that are said in there, the fonts and all the things that they need to do in all of their bits and pieces. And it's a type of feel. When it comes down to marketing, now we have a lot of people in the Sales Authority Club, the Sales Success Club, that really want to do well in their marketing. What's one big tip and an example of something they should do with their photographs for marketing?
Okay, great. I think for marketing, obviously, as I said before, those 2 points ring true for everything we talk about. Photographs have to be quality and they have to be contextual. And by quality, I mean go to a professional photographer, get them done properly. Contextual meaning make sure that it's in line with your brand and you know, the style of image that you're looking for to be in line with the message that you're trying to send. So at the same time,
with that in mind, though, let's put it into context now. Would it be a good idea, if you're going to do some photography for a marketing campaign, to have some progressive photographs, so they're not just sending the same image out regularly and say, we're going to do this call to action and say, we'll do this picture here and then in the same sort of area, but just slightly different and then slightly different. So they have the same type of people or product, but taken at a different angle. So when they market it, it's not the same picture that they're getting all the time. It's something that's a little bit different, but it is the same. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Totally understand. I was just about to say exactly that. I mean, that's really, really great. I'm glad you brought that up. I mean, obviously, they're quality and they're contextual, but you need variety. You need variety, and you need to have, you know, different emotional triggers and emotional connections with different photographs. And you want to tell that story. Photographs about storytelling. And one photo sometimes just is not enough. You want to tell it from different angles. You want wide angle. You want close up. Nice. You want landscape. You want portrait. You want zoomed in. You want blurry background, not blur. Like you want to have a variety of photos that tell that story for you. And that's why, you know, again, a professional photographer can help you put that whole storyboard together in a session.
Okay, so having a storyboard, that's a great way of putting it, saying, well, what's the story? We want happy faces, sad faces, concerned faces, collaboration, a solo warrior, and all in the same, that maybe what your business does, or taking photographs of some of the things you have there, but it'll be from the top, from the bottom, from an angle, combination of everything. And do you think it's a good idea to ask the photographer to make sure you have that variety, or do you think they know it automatically?
No, very good question. I think it's always good to make sure you let the photographer know exactly what you want, because we're all human beings. Everything's very subjective. And unless you really show us what you need, then we'll make sure we get that for you, plus other things that we might think are important. But if you don't tell us what you want, we might give you what we think you like, and you might miss a couple of things. So it's always really important. Even when I finish a shoot, I always come back and say, look, we've got this, we've got this, we've got this. I show them quickly on the back. All right, bang, 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 bang. Are you happy? Is that anything else we need? Oh yeah, can we just have one photo of that? Great, let's go do that. Because
so,
you don't want to miss.
I've been at a lot of photo shoots where the photographer has just taken poetic license, so to speak, and just done some candid photos, just a little bit left field, you know, photograph of another photographer taking a photo of the person and having these a little bit, and people just mucking around a little bit. And sometimes those photos are far better than the ones that are, I'll stand here, do your smile, hand this over, and people just mucking around. And those candid photographs really get a better feel from that. And that's a bit of poetic license, I would suppose, that you need to be able to have a photographer have, I would suggest.
Definitely, because a photographer comes at it with a different eye, and he or she has done this before, and they know what works and what potentially doesn't work as well, but they still want to be able to give you what you're looking for. So it's important to give them a list. They'll do what you want, but then they'll also take some creativity and take some other stuff that might just be the winning shots.
Terrific. And so with that in mind, if you're looking at getting a photographer, do you think it's very important, and what should people look for and when asking for their portfolio to see what they've done in the past? Obviously, historically, you'll see their field, the type of things that they've done. What sort of things should our listeners ask a photographer to show them before they engage them in doing a shoot for them?
Great. That's a really good question. I think even before they start looking at the photographs, I think people should actually see if they can somehow get a sense of who that photographer is, who the personality is. Is it a person that you're going to be able to connect with and go on that journey through that session with you? Because that's, as I said before, the collaboration is where the magic happens. And if you have a photographer that you might not click with, you might not get anything, remarkable out of that session, even though they might be the best photographer. So photographers need to be able to take great photos, and you should look at their portfolio and find out what they've done before, and get some social proof, get some recommendations, testimonials. But at the same time, try and have a conversation, if it's even a quick Zoom call or a Skype call or a FaceTime call or just a telephone call or a coffee, to really get a sense of who that photographer is personally, and if you're going to click with that person, and that will make all the difference.
That's such a great tip, because if you've got your team working with your person and there's a little bit of a grumpy bum, or they're too over the top and it doesn't match the people and they're not feeling comfortable, it wouldn't work, would it? So if it's going to be a collaboration, and even if they're taking photographs of your things and they're not working with you, it could be hard work. And I think that that's a really good point. So guys, listen to that. Have a coffee, have a chat with the person, doing your wedding photos, doing your business photos, and making sure that you've got this click, because you've got a camaraderie, because it'll actually have a better outcome. That's a
perfect example is, people that go and book a photographer for their wedding, they'll usually have a pre-wedding chat, pre-wedding meeting, pre-wedding session, just to see if they click with that person. Yeah. They're going to be spending a lot of time with that person. But even with, smaller sessions of 1 hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, it's still important, because you want to find out if that person's courteous of your time and your space, if they're over the top, or they're going to be able to adjust to the temperature of the firm or the service or the product of the person. You need a person that, like, photography is a service business. It's a people business. And it's about you're working with people, so people have to trust you. And that's why this is so important. Like, a lot of people forget about that side of it.
Yes, well, it's like, get the photos done quickly, but no, find out about the person, see if there's a connection, so you can have a great session. So as I said, that's a golden nugget. So there's a couple more questions. I know you've got a rock and roll, so I don't want to keep you all day. We could talk about this for hours.
Oh, yeah.
How often should people get their photos redone? For instance, I've got some great ones from 3 years ago, 5 years ago. I didn't have as much gray hair and it looks a little bit, and all of a sudden you become a little bit too young and you hang on, I think that doesn't look like Dr. J, or your premises have been upgraded and it looks a little bit old on your website. And how often do you think we should get the team photos redone, and obviously fashion changes and so forth?
Definitely.
What would,
like, a lot of people,
ideal situation for a business, so to speak?
Yeah, I mean, look, a business, I'd say every year or two, you should get your photos redone. If it's your premises and your premises haven't changed that much, you can get away with a bit longer. But if it's the people and the headshots and the branding, who the personalities are of that team, as you say, fashion changes, their look changes, their hairstyle changes, everything changes quite regularly. And I think every year or two, people should upgrade their photos. And real estate agents, lawyers, firms like that sometimes get their photos done every year because they know this happens.
That's great. Look, I just feel that sometimes people it's something they don't think about, but we need to upgrade your things on a regular basis. And every couple of years, getting your team in there, get a photo shoot. It would be fun if you have a team shot, and even if your premises, take it from a different angle. Maybe the lighting might be different.
Yeah,
maybe
definitely.
A couple of new things in there. So, guys, write that down. When was the last time you actually had your photos redone? If it hasn't been the last couple of years, give Darren a call. Get a photographer in. So that's a bit of another golden nugget. Thanks,
definitely.
mate.
And I'm going to add one more thing to that. I think that a lot of people forget that sometimes if you have a photo up there for 10 years and you look nothing like that person when people meet you, that actually also detracts a little bit from the credibility and the trust, because you're not portraying who you really are.
Yeah.
It's very subconscious. So that's even something else to consider when thinking about how regularly to update your photos.
Yeah, especially if your logos changes and your color changes. Or whatever the case. Terrific. All right, now, lucky last question, and I think one that I left to last, because we can take photos of lots of things, but I think it's very important for everybody in business, whether you're a team member or you're an owner or a manager, to make sure you get your portfolio photographs done. The one with your smiling face, or your arms crossed, or whatever you're going to do with you doing this all the stuff, and maybe with it, and have the team done too. It's the team photos and individuals.
Yes.
What are some tips to make sure that for people to make sure they get good head shots, or half body shots, or full shots? What's a couple of tips that they should keep in mind when they're getting them done?
Great. Okay, I got two very good tips, because people ask me this all the time. The first one is, make sure that you're ready and willing to invest some time into collaborating and into the process. Allow yourself to just give yourself over to the moment and go on a journey with the photographer. Because if you come in there with too many preconceived ideas, or you're in a hurry and you've only got 5 minutes because you've got to go get to a meeting, you're going to end up with nothing very, very spectacular. You really have to give yourself the time, and you have to be physically willing to give yourself the space and emotionally willing to engage with the photographer and go on that journey with them. And at the end, you'll be amazed with what you'll get.
So be completely present when you're taking the photos. Don't be, let's say, preoccupied with other things. You've got a dash there. So
exactly. Sure, don't do it in a hurry. Don't do it in a hurry. It's going to be a disaster. Be there, be ready. And as well as that, it's always important to, of course, use a professional photographer, and make sure you're finding that right photographer for you. So it's really important, as I said before.
So how often do you reckon those headshots and long shots and candid shots and team shots should be done? Again, every couple of years?
Yeah, I'd say so. A good every year or two. And again, take a few of those photos as well. Like, I did a session recently for a good friend of mine who wanted a session done because he's renewing his career in a way. And we did a whole session for a few hours with a few different costumes. We shot different styles of photos, different backgrounds, different color. And then you can use those photos for different things. Because, for example, you might have a fantastic photo that comes out of that session that will be your perfect headshot photo for your website. But then you might want to have a photo that you want to use as a promotional piece of material for when you do a speaking event. And that might be a bit more serious than the one on your website. So you come out with 3 or 4 different photos that you can use in different places.
So how important is it to make sure you get I think it's pretty self-explanatory, but making you got your hair done or you got your makeup sorted out, and spend a bit of time on that. And I think you just said have a change of costumes. A lot of people don't think of that. Change your tie, change your shirt, change the look. You got to bring your clothes along. Is that correct?
That's right. And have a good think about that. And again, with the collaboration with the photographer, you'll also think about, he'll explain to you, I think, these are the kind of clothing and what I want you to do to style for the photo. And he might also talk to you about what colors would you like? Do you want a white background? Do you want a black background? Do you want a gray background? Do you want a bit of both? Again, it's all about that collaboration. And he or she might look at your website and say, all right, that's the style in your photos now. Do you want to be in line with that style, or do you want to shake it up a bit? Do you want to do something different? So, again, it's about going through that journey and allowing the time to bring in some costume change, do your makeup if you have to, of course, get your hair cut, shave a little bit. But, if there's one little thing that they need to fix or tweak, we have our lovely Photoshop or Lightroom software to help you fix that up as well.
Terrific.
So it's not the be all and end all if you've got one hair sticking out over
there. They're magical there. So just to recap that, make sure that you've got the time, not be rushed, making sure that you're going to go on this journey with the photographer. Hopefully you've met them beforehand, so there's that click. Bring a change of clothing, tie, or making sure that you've got some different feels about it and have different, let's say, moods and possibly the different types of colors and getting that ready. So there's a little bit of preparation that needs to take place. So you're working as a team with the photographer.
Definitely. What? It's not like a lot of people think, oh, let's get the headshot done. We'll book it in for a 15-minute session and we're done. No, you got to spend the time. You got to take an hour, half an hour at least, but maybe an hour to go through that journey, see what's working, have a look, recap, rejig, and then you come out with something that you're really going to be happy with. And all your friends and family are going to say, wow, my God, what a fantastic photo. You look amazing. You know, it's because your photo, again, is really important. It's your first line of defense or first line of offense in a way to building relationships. And it's a picture tells 1,000 words. And if you really don't take the time to make sure you get that right, you could be actually limiting the rest of the opportunities that you and the potential because your photo just wasn't in line with who you are.
Terrific. What a great way of finishing, Darren. So how can people get in contact with Darren Saul to actually talk about the photography and maybe start that journey with you? How can they get in contact with you?
With pleasure. I mean, I'd love anybody to give me a ring. You can give me a buzz on 0414 659 800.
Just say that a little bit slower because they're probably grabbing their pens right now.
Yeah.
And write it down. So
say it really slowly.
Really slow. Off we go.
So we've got 0414 659 800.
Terrific.
Or you can go to my website, which is just www.suspendedanimation, all one word, .com.au. And you'll be able to link to all my photos, my blog, my podcasts, my video. And that's another good point. I've got a little video up there to show people how I think and who I am and what my philosophy is about working with other people. So you can get a sense of me before you engage. But I'm always, happy to have a coffee or have a video chat or have a telephone chat. So, feel free to get in touch and we'd love to help you out.
Terrific. Well, thanks, Darren, for joining me, mate. It's just terrific.
Thank you.
So many golden nuggets there for our crew. So thanks so much.
Thank you, Steve. Really appreciate it. And all the audience out there, thanks for having me and listening to me.
All right, gang. How good was that? All those good nuggets. Hope you wrote down lots of stuff. Making sure that we upgrade our photos, getting different angles, making sure there's a collaboration with the photographer, understanding the mood that you want, and understand the difference between branding and marketing for photography. Have a bit of a think about it. You're going to take the clicks yourself or you want to have it matching the quality, having that quality photograph. Hope you wrote down lots of stuff. And as I said, there was lots of tons of nuggets there. To take action, get hold of Darren. I'm sure you'll love to have a chat with him. He's a terrific fellow. He's absolute. You'll look at his photographs. I'm sure you'll be absolutely blown away. So guys, thanks for joining me today. And make sure that you listen to this more than once, because once is never enough. I'm Dr. J, and I'll talk to you when you're a bit older. Bye for now.